What happened when an undercover CEO walked into his own high-end fashion boutique and discovered a quiet, calculated bias against older workers? Welcome, brilliant and thoughtful viewers. You truly have an eye for stories that matter. Today's tale is more than just designer clothes and elegant storefronts. It's about integrity, courage, and the power of seeing people for their worth, not their age. Join us as we follow CEO Julien Laurent on a bold undercover mission inside Lumiere Atelier, where he uncovers prejudice, uplifts unsung talent, and redefines what real style and leadership looks like. This is a story you won't want to miss. Julien Marceau sat at the head of the polished glass conference table inside Lumiere Atelier's Paris headquarters, his jaw tight as the latest customer satisfaction reports flickered onto the wall. Once the pinnacle of luxury fashion retail, the brand was now faltering, and the numbers confirmed it. Survey after survey mentioned the same complaints. Staff seemed aloof, service lacked warmth, and the human touch that once defined Lumiere had vanished. Julien ran a hand through his graying hair as he studied the sharp decline in returning customers at flagship locations, especially among older clientele. Disengaged floor teams, long wait times, complaints of being ignored, he murmured. How did we get here? Elise Durand, head of marketing, offered her usual sunny outlook. We're repositioning for a younger demographic. The shift takes time, but her reassurance rang hollow. Julien flipped to the hiring data. What he saw made his chest tighten. Over 90% of recent hires were under 35, with barely any representation of seasoned professionals. Curious, he ran a deeper audit, filtering applicant data by age. What emerged chilled him. Older applicants, even with decades of luxury retail experience, were consistently filtered out or marked as not a culture fit. That same afternoon, an anonymous email landed in his inbox. Check your HR files. Older applicants are being turned away, some without ever getting a real interview. They're told they don't match the brand. It's happening in your stores, especially Paris. Julien leaned back in his chair, heart pounding. Could Lumiere Atelier, a company built by his mother on the belief that fashion should empower all, now be silently discarding the very people who shaped its legacy? He couldn't fix this with a memo or a directive. No, to understand what had gone wrong, he would have to go where no CEO was expected to be, into the heart of the hiring process, into the store at someone else. 3 weeks later, Julien Marceau stood outside the Lumiere Atelier flagship store on Rue Saint-Honoré, but not as the celebrated CEO. Today, he was Jules Martin, a middle-aged man recently laid off from a boutique tailoring shop in Lyon, seeking a fresh start in retail. His signature salt and pepper waves were now cropped close and dyed a flat brown. Gone were the bespoke suits, replaced by off-the-rack slacks, a wrinkled shirt, and scuffed leather shoes borrowed from his cousin. He wore thick-rimmed glasses that sat awkwardly on his nose and carried a second-hand satchel filled with a modest resume, hand-printed references, and an eager cover letter. With help from his longtime friend Camille, now a freelance HR consultant, he had applied through an internal temp agency under the alias. His new identity was believable. Underqualified on paper, quiet but hardworking, no online presence, just enough to get overlooked or rejected. To his surprise, he received a call 3 days later offering a trial shift as a part-time stock assistant. It was the lowest rung, folding garments, restocking hangers, fetching coffee for stylists, but it gave him access. Camille warned him, keep your head down, the system protects itself. And so, on a drizzly Monday morning, Jules Martin stepped through the automatic glass doors, blinking under the boutique's warm lights. From the outside, Lumiere Atelier still gleamed. Mannequins poised in hand-stitched blazers, the scent of bergamot and cedarwood diffused perfectly. But as Jules moved past the perfumed entry and into the employee-only corridors, the glamour faded. The break room was cramped, the lockers rusted at the edges, and the air held a hum of quiet tension. His manager, a young woman named Chloe with an icy stare and a penchant for multitasking via Bluetooth headset, greeted him with a distracted, "Try not to get in the way." Training lasted 7 minutes. "Bold, sort, and don't touch the haute couture," she said, before disappearing into the styling bay. "No formal orientation, No welcome, no questions about experience, just a branded apron, a stack of return tags, and an unspoken message. You're not meant to stand out. As Jules tucked a misfolded scarf back onto a shelf, he realized the real fabric of this store wasn't silk or cashmere. It was silent, and he was about to unravel it, one stitch at a time. Julien, now Jules Martin, arrived early on his first official shift at Lumière Atelier, clutching a paper bag with a lukewarm croissant and nervously checking the time. The employee entrance, a stark metal door behind the glittering storefront, lacked any of the charm the brand so carefully projected. A chipped buzzer summoned a sleepy security guard who gave him a once-over before waving him through. The employee lounge, located just beyond the loading dock, was a far cry from the boutique's polished image. Dimly lit, poorly ventilated, with coffee stains on a crooked table and walls plastered with passive-aggressive signs, "Clean up after yourself," and "No personal phone use during shift." A thin young man with unruly curls and anxious energy greeted him. Before Julien could reply, the floor supervisor, swept in, heels clicking sharply. "That's the new temp?" she asked, barely hiding her disappointment. "Keep him in the back, no floor interaction until I say so." With that, she vanished into the front showroom, where sunlight and soft jazz flowed effortlessly. The contrast was jarring. For the rest of the morning, Jules was buried in tasks, hauling garment bags, sorting mislabeled blouses, and trying to decipher the cryptic filing system for seasonal accessories. Despite his years of fashion leadership, he said nothing, played dumb, and took notes, mental and written. He noticed subtle patterns. Older workers were scarce, their lockers few and dusty. Younger hires floated easily between departments, often skipping training. During a short break, Emile confided in him, voice low, "If you're over 35 here, they keep you hidden. Too slow, too vintage, unless you're a name or a face, they just shelf you." As the day wore on, Jules endured curt instructions, dismissive glances, and the nagging realization that every corner of the store had a hierarchy invisible to customers, but deeply felt by staff. When he peeked into the fitting lounge and saw a middle-aged saleswoman being scolded for recommending too classic, a cut to a VIP influencer, it crystallized everything. Age wasn't just ignored here, it was penalized, and Lumière Atelier had built its elegance atop a foundation of quiet erasure. Jules tucked a crumpled scarf into a drawer, his jaw tightening. The seams of this place were more frayed than anyone dared admit, and he was here to pull the thread. Over the next several days, Jules settled into the rhythm of the back room, but his mind was anything but idle. Between folding denim displays and restocking seasonal accessories, he quietly cataloged the inner workings of Lumière Atelier's hierarchy. The store's sleek minimalism masked a system that prized youth over substance, appearance over experience. Jules noticed that older employees, those in their 40s or 50s, were quietly relegated to non-visible roles. Sorting, steaming, restocking. They rarely interacted with customers. Meanwhile, fresh-faced associates with modest resumes breezed onto the showroom floor, handling VIP clients and getting invited to influencer cocktail hours. During one morning huddle, Chloe breezily noted, "Let's keep the brand energy fresh today. Remember, it's all about looking aspirational." The subtext was unmistakable. Later, in the staff room, Jules overheard a junior manager mutter, "That woman in accessories, she's sweet, but she doesn't vibe with the aesthetic. She's better off in stock." It wasn't policy, it was culture, insidious and unspoken. He saw how younger staff were encouraged to engage in social media challenges, while older workers were quietly passed over for premium shifts or client styling opportunities. Even training protocols were different. New hires under 30 were given one-on-one mentorships and access to branding workshops. Others were handed outdated manuals and told to shadow someone if they had time. Jules began documenting it all: remarks, assignments, shift patterns, building a quiet case. But what disturbed him most wasn't the snide comments or biased scheduling. It was the subtle erosion of morale. One afternoon, he watched Sylvie, a silver-haired merchandiser, quietly remove a necklace from a window display and return it to inventory. "Client said it looked dated," she said softly, though her eyes betrayed a deeper sting. No one defended her. No one said a word. Jules forced a smile, but inside he burned with recognition. This wasn't just oversight, it was institutionalized ageism, dressed in haute couture. Lumière Atelier didn't need to fire its older employees to silence them. It simply stopped seeing them, and Jules realized the most dangerous thing wasn't that discrimination existed, it was that it had become routine. The breaking point came during a particularly hectic Saturday afternoon, spring collection launch day. The boutique was flooded with fashion bloggers, stylists, and curious shoppers, eager to capture the perfect mirror selfie. Chloe, headset on and heels clicking across the marble floor, barked orders like a runway general. "Keep the Gen Z wall immaculate. Someone fix that lighting on the vintage rack, it looks depressing," she snapped, waving dismissively at Sylvie, who had been restocking that section for the past hour. "Sylvie, just move to backstock for now, okay?" The older woman nodded, shoulders tightening, and shuffled toward the rear, her pride left behind among the overpriced denim and artificial smiles. But moments later, chaos struck. An older customer, well-dressed, mid-60s, holding a curated bag of carefully selected items, approached the register. Jules, folding scarves nearby, caught the warm gratitude in her tone as she thanked Sylvie for helping her find the perfect spring outfit for her daughter's engagement brunch. "It's been a long time since anyone helped me like that," she said. "I nearly walked out before Sylvie found me," but before Sylvie could respond, Chloe swooped in. "Ma'am, would you like to see our luxe lounge? I can have someone assist you there with more refined selections." Her tone dripped with fake charm, and the woman blinked, caught off guard. "I'm quite happy with Sylvie's help," she replied kindly. Chloe's smile thinned. "Of course. But we prefer to associate with more product alignment, to handle curated experiences. I'll take it from here." Jules could see the shift in Sylvie's face, grace cracking into humiliation. The customer looked confused, unsettled. "Actually, I think I'll come back another day," she said quietly, placing the items back on the counter and walking out without another word. Silence fell over the boutique for a split second. Then, as if nothing happened, Chloe turned to Sylvie. "Backstock, now." Jules's jaw clenched. That night he couldn't sleep. The incident played on loop in his mind. A loyal customer was driven out. A seasoned staff member was humiliated. A company that had chosen image over integrity. He replayed Chloe's words again and again, product alignment, as if kindness had an age limit. Jules knew what he'd witnessed wasn't just a mistake. It was a moment that crystallized everything, the bias, the culture, the loss of values, and it was time to act. The following week, Jules began compiling every observation, subtle pattern, and whispered comment into a private journal tucked beneath a drawer in the employee break room. With each passing shift, the disconnect between values and reality became clearer. He reviewed the onboarding training again, this time with a keener eye, noticing how much emphasis was placed on youthful adaptability and fast-paced culture fit. Behind those glossy words was a coded message: younger equals better. During a routine task organizing applications in the hiring system, Jules discovered a hidden folder marked Archived, Non-Priority Leads. It was password protected, but access had been left carelessly open by a distracted manager. Inside were dozens of highly qualified applications from older candidates, most with impressive resumes, glowing references, and decades of retail experience. One name stood out: Claudine Pelletier, a former senior merchandiser with a track record of boosting customer retention by 30% in her previous role. Her file was marked, "Not aligned with brand direction." Another read, "Energy mismatch." Jules felt his chest tighten. He began discreetly photographing evidence, including notes scrawled on applications like "too seasoned" or "overqualified." These weren't just hiring preferences, they were red flags of active bias. He overheard Chloe coaching another manager during a mock interview, emphasizing tone and youth appeal over technical qualifications. "We need someone who looks like our customers, who feels like part of the vibe," she said with a laugh. "Experience is great, but not if it slows us down." Back in the stockroom, Jules spoke in hushed tones to Sylvie, gently asking about her experience. At first, she hesitated, wary. Then her words tumbled out in quiet frustration. "I used to train floor leads," she said. "Now I'm lucky if they ask me to fold jeans. The new hires think I'm just some backroom dinosaur." That night, Jules sifted through more internal memos, one in particular from upper HR. Reinforce youth group branding in all store hires. Ensure staff aligns visually and culturally with modern clientele. That line hit like a punch to the gut. It was no longer speculation, it was a strategy, one that needed to be dismantled. The air in the showroom shimmered with anticipation as the team gathered for what they believed was a routine morning meeting. Mannequins stood frozen in curated outfits behind the glass walls, a backdrop to what would soon become a turning point in Maison Elegance's history. Jules, no longer dressed in his modest floor staff uniform, entered the room in a sharp navy blazer. His graying hair, once hidden under a cap, was now styled with purpose. Murmurs spread like wildfire. Chloe arched an eyebrow, arms crossed, already preparing a witty comment. But Jules cut through the noise with calm authority. "Good morning," he began, voice unwavering. "Before we go over the weekly metrics, I'd like to reintroduce myself. My name isn't Jules Martin, it's Julien Delacroix. I'm the founder and CEO of Maison Elegance." Silence dropped like a velvet curtain. Eyes widened, Sylvie gasped audibly, Chloe's smirk collapsed into a look of stunned confusion. "For the past few weeks, I've been undercover, working alongside you all, observing, listening, and experiencing the daily operations from the ground level. What I've seen has shaken me." He stepped to the projector and clicked a button on his tablet. The screen behind him displayed anonymized application records, hiring notes, and internal emails. "These documents reveal a pattern of age-based discrimination embedded in our hiring practices," Julien said. "Skilled professionals, some with decades of experience, were dismissed, not for lack of ability, but because they were deemed too old to match the brand." Chloe's face flushed. "Those notes weren't official policy," Julien cut her off. "Yet they were repeated, normalized, allowed." He let the silence stretch. "This isn't about assigning blame to one person. It's about rooting out a culture of exclusion that has taken hold in our house. A culture that values image over substance, style over experience." Turning to Sylvie, he added, "And it's about the quiet leaders who have stayed, who've been overlooked, underestimated, yet continued to serve with grace. People like you." He closed his laptop. "Effective immediately, we are launching a formal investigation into discriminatory hiring, and yes, there will be consequences, but more importantly, there will be change." The room sat in stunned stillness, the weight of the moment settling over everyone. For the first time, Julien Delacroix wasn't speaking as a CEO above the team, but as someone who had walked their halls, folded their sweaters, and seen their truths. The fallout from Julien's reveal rippled through Maison Elegance like a seismic wave. In the days that followed, an internal audit team was brought in to review the flagged hiring documents and interview logs. Several department managers, including Chloe, were placed on administrative leave, pending further investigation. Her carefully cultivated charm and air of superiority could no longer shield her from accountability. Behind her polished professionalism lay a pattern of biased gatekeeping that had shaped the boutique's staffing for years. Yet amidst the reckoning, a quiet celebration began to bloom. Sylvie Dubois, the soft-spoken senior associate whose wisdom and warmth had long been overlooked, was called into Julien's office one afternoon. She entered hesitantly, expecting further inquiries. Instead, Julien stood and extended his hand. "Sylvie, your integrity and kindness have not gone unnoticed. I'd like you to accept the role of Assistant Director of In-Store Experience. We need leaders who understand what care looks like, who lead with empathy, not ego." Tears welled in Sylvie's eyes. I don't know what to say." "Say yes," Julien replied with a gentle smile. "Maison Elegance needs more of you at the helm." Word of Sylvie's promotion spread quickly, energizing the staff. Her story became a symbol of earned recognition, proof that dedication and heart still had a place in the fashion world. The boutique felt different now, a little lighter, a little more just. The transformation at Lumière Atelier didn't happen overnight, but the shift was undeniable. Under Julien's renewed leadership, the boutique embraced a new hiring initiative, Experience Counts. Age-inclusive recruitment panels were formed, anonymous resume screening was implemented, and hiring managers underwent mandatory inclusivity training focused on unconscious bias and respectful engagement. The fashion house, once whispered about for its ageist tendencies, now proudly displayed posters of its newly diverse staff. Elegant older associates, second career stylists, and multi-generational mentorship pairs working side by side. Sylvie, now assistant director of in-store experience, spearheaded a cross-training program where younger hires learned the art of personal styling and relationship building from veteran associates, while offering tech tips in return. The exchange created not only stronger teams, but an atmosphere of mutual respect that hadn't existed before. Customers noticed too. Repeat clients began requesting specific staff by name, praising the warm, personalized service that had quietly returned to the brand's identity. Julien initiated a monthly forum called the Mirror Hour, where employees could voice concerns, suggest improvements, and share stories that exemplified the boutique's new values. It wasn't just symbolic, it was structural change. Gone were the whispered exclusions and coded language of energy and vibe. In its place stood a clear message: excellence knows no age. The boutique's culture was shifting, from superficial polish to deep-rooted pride. Julien Laurent stood beneath the warm afternoon sun filtering through the grand display windows of Lumière Atelier, watching passers-by pause to admire the latest collection. But what filled him with quiet pride wasn't the couture on the mannequins. It was the energy inside the store. Laughter spilled from the fitting rooms. Mentors guided eager new hires through inventory checks, and longtime clients exchanged stories with familiar faces at the register. The boutique felt alive again, not just with fashion, but with fairness. He thought back to the moment it all began, the cold shock of reading rejection notes, the sinking realization that prejudice had embedded itself in the company he'd sworn to lead with integrity. Disguising himself to walk among his employees had been risky, even reckless, but it was necessary. He had seen the truth up close, the weariness of being dismissed, the quiet brilliance of those who persevered anyway, and the dignity that age, experience, and humanity brought to the sales floor. Lumière Atelier had once been a place of exclusion dressed in elegance. Now it was becoming what he'd always dreamed it could be, a fashion house rooted in respect. There was still work ahead, of course, but the foundation was changing. Not just in policy, but in people's hearts. Julien exhaled deeply, a faint smile tugging at his lips. This wasn't just a correction, it was a restoration. And from here, the runway forward looked brighter than ever. The story of Julien Laurent and Lumière Atelier teaches a powerful lesson about leadership, integrity, and the importance of confronting hidden injustices. Even in places that seem polished on the surface, inequality can take root, quietly, systematically, and devastatingly. By going undercover, Julien discovered a harsh truth. Experienced, qualified individuals were being sidelined not because of their abilities, but because of their age. Rather than turning a blind eye, he chose to act. The most important takeaway is that real change starts with proximity, with leaders willing to step down from their pedestal and walk beside the people most affected. It also highlights the courage of those who, despite being overlooked, continue to show up, give their best, and uphold values others have forgotten. People like Odette and many others carried the soul of the boutique long before recognition ever came. The story reminds us that diversity isn't just about age or appearance. It's about embracing all kinds of talent and experience and making space for everyone to thrive. Fairness shouldn't be a campaign slogan, it should be a lived reality. And it takes bold action, not just policy, to rebuild trust, dignity, and culture from the inside out.